So, here's a story about a man named Brandon Hansford. Brandon Hansford is 29 years old. He seems to be smiling. He seems to be happy. He's wearing a suit. He's got a 3-year-old son. And earlier this year, he was shot and killed. And he was shot and killed in his car. And he tries to drive to a neighbor or a house for help, and he runs into their garage. So they eventually released the man's name, Brandon Hansford. Brandon Hansford. He died of multiple gunshot wounds. Is there a lead? Of course there is. There's two people, Charles Galloway and Mari Ansari. So his mother isn't angry, but she's very sad. Kathy Hansford, she's not angry, but she's heartbroken. The coroner said he had 3 to 4 gunshot wounds. She thinks that he was shot inside of his car. Kathy Hansford believes she knows who killed her son, but they won't mention the name. We got to protect the criminals. Now, Brandon Hansford was a cop. He could have got the man, beat the crap out of him, and then charged him with the crime. But since he's not a cop, nobody's going to give a crap about his life. Brandon Hansford is dead 1,000,000 times over. He's dead in this life, and his legacy is gone. They said, let's see, basically, oh my God, he ran into my house. That's what Marlene is like, oh, I heard a scraping sound. I looked outside, and the car was right there. They're reviewing surveillance video from across the street to see if they can find who the guy is. He won't see his baby boy grow up. And then they said, do you have a message for the killers? And she's like, you took my son. How could you? How dare you? And that's probably the extent of that. There's a GoFundMe page for his funeral expenses. So, right, it's a big money game. There was an emergency protective order. He actually filed an EPO in the Jefferson County Court in June. So, that was effective. That helped. And this is June 19th, 2016. July 19th, August, September. So this is 2 months ago to the date. 2 months ago. And he got an EPO less than a month ago against a man who he said he was stalking him. And it was an ex-boyfriend of a coworker. So I could see that this man is being nice to a coworker. The coworker has a oppressive man that's on her. He was like, hey, you, stop it. And then eventually the guy keeps on stalking him. He says he's afraid for his child's safety as well as his own. So if you don't care about the man, then maybe you'll care about the 3-year-old boy. On the document, you have Brandon Hansford, claims the defendant physically assaulted him and had him physically assaulted by another person. So this guy, who the media will not mention, they got the documents, they got the EPO, they got the man's name. But they will not publish the man's name because they're going to protect his rights, too. They're fair and balanced. They're going to let you decide. And on the document, it says that he physically assaulted him. He had another guy physically assault him. It details an interaction between the two men where the defendant blocked the exit of Hansford workplace while Hansford was trying to leave, then started to walk towards him, eventually stopping after he saw Hansford's child and said, you're lucky your son is with you. And then that's the incident that Kathy Hansford said made her most nervous for her son's safety, fearing that the worst may happen. She prayed. She did pray. So if you're like, oh my God, it's not like she didn't do anything. She did pray. They cannot tell us how or if they're even using the documents as part of the investigation. They won't find the guy. They won't find the murderers. There's surveillance cameras, so they'll check in surveillance to see what had happened. An EPO was filed June 23rd. He identifies the person, but Wave 3 News is not going to identify him now because the police haven't named him as a suspect. And the media cannot add 1 + 1 and equal 2 because that's presumptuous. They're trying to be objective here. 1 + 1 could equal, purple 7-Up. You never know. You never know. 1 + 1 could equal something else. He had an EPO on him, but the LMPD says, no, he's not a suspect to the case, so let's protect the criminal. They're not going to catch the criminal. The media hasn't mentioned who the criminal is. the guy that's on the EPO, that's who killed him. I'll tell you right now, that's who did it. That's who did it. If he didn't do it, he got somebody else to do it. And it says he went to work, he returned. Okay, yeah, so again, saying the same thing about blocking the car. He was found dead at 12:34 a.m. on Monday in the 2100 block of Upper Hunters Trace. This is Louisville, Kentucky. After a homeowner felt Hansford car hit her home, crashed into her back garage. Kathy Hansford said she and her son lived close to where her son was found dead. Kathy Hansford says Brandon Hansford was on his way home when he was killed. I'm not angry, I'm heartbroken. The coroner said he had 3 to 4 gunshot wounds. She's being very methodical. You know, she prayed. She prayed. That's really, you know, she lost his son and he won't see his boy grow up, you know. And that's the end of this story. Will we catch the guy? I think that you have Nelson Mandela said that Americans just don't care about other people. That sounds very similar to this case. You have Twitter. There was this one, I remember this one woman, young woman, 18-year-old or so. She got on Twitter and she basically was like, I'm going to kill myself, and she wrote like 300 depressing messages, and then eventually she says, okay, I'm taking the pills, and they're slowly getting to me, and nobody reached out, nobody did anything about it. You have the don't tase me, bro. You have that one guy who asked John Kerry a question, and as he's being escorted out and beaten up and tased, all the white people, all the white faces, young, old, male, female, just watched. They're actually annoyed, right? They're perturbed. Oh, God, I'm just trying to watch John Kerry say some crap. Why is this guy doing this thing? They weren't even looking, you know. In fact, looky-loos might have been a little bit better because then they're somewhat curious, but they weren't curious about the guy. And he was like, don't tase me, bro. Everybody watched. Nobody did anything about it. You got Chelsea Manning. You got Edward Snowden. You have, you know, the Stanford prison experiments. There's a guy, there was an oppressor, and he kept on just messing with people and oppressing. They really amped it up, and they had to pull the plug on the Stanford prison experiments. But the one guy was doing a hunger strike, and he was doing a hunger strike because it was a experiment. There's a bunch of college students. They all signed up to it. They know that what they were doing. The main prison guard amped it up, and even the guy, Zimbardo, the guy who did the experiment, he started getting involved, and he was like the prison warden, and he really wanted to, no, you can't leave, you got to do this. And the guy who was doing a hunger strike was over on the other side, and he was like freaking out. He was like, I feel like I'm losing my mind! I feel like I'm losing my mind! And he tried to express himself. It was a college experiment. The only way that they could have been successful, the prisoners, and most of the prisoners just said, just do what they say, man. If you just do what they say, they'll stop doing it. That's what they were commanding them to do. That's what they were telling them to do, but they were acting like this is Full Metal Jacket, right? They acted like he was Leonard because he just wouldn't submit, and everybody else was doing push-ups and all these humiliating, you know, the exercises, and the prison guards, the oppressors, literally wanted to make the prisoners' lives hell. And they've made a movie about this. And it's, you know, they should have actually spurred a lot of literature about it, because that's what it looks like when you're being oppressed and you're trying to, he says he's losing his mind. He felt like he was losing his identity. And he tried to yell about it, but, you know, he yelled and nobody cared. Everybody's kind of like, ooh, he's going crazy over there. So now Brandon Hansford is dead. He's 29 years old. He's got a mother who prayed. I don't know if he has any friends or family. He's got a 3-year-old son. I mean, shouldn't that get people to care? 3-year-old son now doesn't have a daddy. He doesn't have a daddy who loves him. So all this, you know, criticism about Black Lives Matter and black families, there's something wrong with white people. They have a empathy gene is gone. I think capitalism, dog eat dog, tribalism, everybody's doing their own thing. I don't know what it is. But I don't know, R.I.P. Brandon Mansford. I hope that your legacy is never forgotten. Not just that you were a victim of gun violence. Your mom seems very particular about what the coroner says. But I hope she actually says things that you said. And I hope that there's other people that actually cared about you and said, here's what Brandon Mansford was about. Here's what Brandon Mansford stood for. I hope they remember your legacy, and I hope you get some justice. He wrote out an EPO. Of course that would be a prime suspect. That would be the main suspect. The guy is stalking him. He keeps going to his work. Then they shot and killed him. Now he's dead. Yeah, that's a suspect. Because the cops didn't say he was a suspect, they're not going to print his name. You're protecting criminals. The media, I had 3 or 4 pages of the media. They protected the criminal's name. The police protected the criminal's name. And I don't know why. I don't know why. If it was a cop, and the cop beat the crap out of that guy and then said he was guilty of something, then we're all going to go along with that. We'll go along with that charade. That charade. So, yeah, R.I.P. Brandon Mansford. I hope you, I hope you get some justice. But I'm not holding my breath.